time for Lykken on Lending.
Welcome, everybody. Good to have you with us.
Welcome to Lykken on Lending, a weekly mortgage market update providing up-to-the-minute information on interest rates, loan programs, and hot industry news, all related to the mortgage industry. Brought to you by Transformational Mortgage Solutions. To participate in today's program, our guest call-in line is 646-716-4972. Now here's your host of Lykken on Lending, David Lykken.
Let's begin.
Listeners, I'm excited to have on the podcast today Ben Miller. He is CEO at SimpleNexus. It's an nCino company. We're going to talk more about nCino. Ben oversees the overall business strategy, operations, and go-to-market activities while guiding the company's overall market leadership in the streamlining the homeownership journey, something we all can do. Need some help in. He's very much into innovating mortgage technology. Ben, good to have you on the podcast. Thanks you for being here.
Yeah, thank you. It's exciting to be here. I appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you being an advertiser. So full disclosure, everybody, yes, Ben and SimpleNexus, we're proud. They're one of our proud sponsors. We're pleased to have them. And we are very careful who we select to be sponsors of our podcast. And we're looking for market leaders. And certainly Ben and SimpleNexus is that. Before we get started and really getting into some of the meat of the matter here, but I think it's important that people get to know you, Ben. I'd like to have, how did you get to where you're at today? What's your journey to this place?
No, it's a diverse journey, right? I mean, a lot of people in the mortgage industry may have started somewhere else and then found themselves in mortgage, and here they are, right? We're kind of with it, and you know, it's a career, and it's an exciting place to be. You know, there's a lot of cool things happening in mortgage. But I started actually in construction management. I have a civil engineering degree, and did that for a while, and went through the great financial crisis, and with a massive pullback in construction, as you can imagine, decided that I should probably reinvent myself. Let me try to do something different. And wanted to go to business school, and came out to Utah to go to BYU and got an MBA. And there's a lot of technology in Utah, a lot of tech companies, a lot of startups. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in startups, and this was an amazing environment to learn from. And came out here, got my fancy, shiny MBA, and went out into the world to go start a couple companies, and failed miserably. So yeah,
I think everyone assumes that when you start a company, you just start tech and it just takes off. But I think you learn so much from our failures. I think that's where we learn the most.
100%. Learned a lot about, what it takes to, create good technology. How do you test it? How do you get that market validation? Listen to the customer, all those types of things. And after failing at a few businesses, I actually was taking a small business through an incubator here in Utah, and Roger Andrus was the director of that incubator, and Matt Hansen was also taking his company through at the same time. My company failed, and I did not know Matt at the time, but Roger suggested, he said, "Hey, you're a hard worker, kind of a smart kid, and your idea was just bad, so maybe you should meet this other guy, Matt, who has a good idea, and he needs some help. So maybe y'all should have lunch together and see what happens." So
that's as you guys really got started early together, early on.
Early on.
Yeah,
so it was
Matt Hansen is the founder. And so what is it that drew you to Matt and this company, SimpleNexus?
No, 100%. It's a great question, because business, I believe in this, it's you work with people that you like, that you trust, that you want to be with, right?
Hopefully that's the case. It works better when that's the case. That's
it definitely works better when that's the case. I did not know anything about mortgage. I bought a couple of houses, and that was it, right? Knew it was a hard process, and Matt has this technology, and he's solving problems in the mortgage industry. That by itself did not attract me to SimpleNexus at all, right? I just couldn't wait to get out of bed and go join the mortgage industry. That was not the case. But I met this guy, and I met a guy that was a good thinker, right? That I could tell was just a brilliant product mind, a great engineer. And then apart from that, just felt like, I feel like I can trust this guy. I feel like this is a guy that I could go to work with every day, and feel like a friend, a pal, but also somebody that's going to jump into the trenches and grab a shovel and get to work with and just get it done. That type of personality as I got to know him more. and just a wise person, that thought through problems. I like the way he thought. And I just said, it's like, I want to partner with this person. And then the business.
That's so good. I think that's important. I think that's a really important thing, because people do business more with the person sometimes, but it's important to have a great idea. But when you put the two together, great idea and a great person, that really connects. I got a question. I always love asking this question. How did you guys come up with the name SimpleNexus?
SimpleNexus. Yeah, that was Matt, brought that to be. And so Nexus is like this connecting point, right? To bring things together. And he had this vision of creating a platform that would bring a salesperson and a customer together in the platform, maybe some auxiliary personas, right? And then you could apply it, in this case, to mortgage. And so it's a nexus, it's a bringing together in a very simple, easy, concise way to do a transaction, right? So that is the thesis behind the name, and the name has served us well. We continue to bring different parties together and to have a simple, easy workflow to be able to create that transaction together.
Well, a significant part of your journey has been the recent acquisition by nCino. And I'd love to get a little insights as to what attracted you to them and them to you. I have some insights into that, but I'd love to hear your perspective.
So the fact that I'm sitting in this chair right now and still working, attests to the goals of why we did this transaction, right? When we saw this company and we saw that they could help us continue our vision of dominating and being the best in class in the mortgage space, we said, okay, this makes sense. Let's do this, right? And let's stay here and continue to realize our vision. So nCino is widely known as best in class for the commercial banking operating system and commercial banking process flow. And they also are doing other products like small business lending or retailing and things of that nature, right? But they did not have a mortgage offering, right? They actually had tried to build one before, and it didn't work out for them. And so they came to us and said, with mortgage, and we have all the other things in banking covered, but now with mortgage, we can have that complete digital transformation for a financial institution. And we need you guys to fill this gap, but keep being the absolute best at mortgage. Don't worry about any of this other stuff. Like, we've got this other stuff, right? And that was fascinating to us to say, it can bring us into, the FI space, which we're traditionally IMBs, and help make us stronger there and sell more software to that base, but we don't have to be distracted and learn some other random thing. We can continue to be laser focused and best at mortgage. And that's what we signed up for. So we merged those companies together to have a much more powerful offering together than individually, right? And very, very exciting. So for us.
Yeah, you introduced me into Poland, who's one of the co-founders, Pierre, who I have not yet met. Looking forward to meeting him. I hear so many amazing things about this gentleman. And then Poland, who you introduced me to, and in Nashville at the National Mortgage Banking Conference. I was really impressed with them. And you immediately pick up, these guys are real guys. They don't come across as these arrogant investment bankers acquiring companies and all that. They just seem like a culture fit with you. Talk about that and the culture between the two companies.
No, that's so important, right? I'm a young guy. I'm not a serial entrepreneur. I don't know what I'm doing, right? We work hard and try to make smart decisions, but we had heard that most software acquisitions fail, right? Yes. And why do they fail? Number one reason is culture, right? Because, you have an acquiring company that ultimately says, well, you have to do it this way because we bought you, right? And the acquired company says, well, I don't like that, so I'm out, and then stuff falls apart. Right. So we knew that going in and spent a lot of dedicated time with that team, Poland, Pierre, others in that team, and made sure that we could partner with them. Just like I did that with Matt Hansen, and he did that with me to say, hey, could I work with this guy? Because it's all fun during the dating phase of getting to know each other. But eventually, we're going to run into a problem. And we're going to have something hard to solve, and we got to solve that together, And so we did the same thing with nCino. And not only did we have 1 hour meetings here and there, but then we took it further and said, okay, let's have dinners together. Now let's go spend all day long in your office. And then you spend all day in my office, and let's sit down and see how you behave for 8 hours instead of a 1 hour window, right? And talk through a lot of things of how we're going to work together to try to make a plan, and of course, when you actually go to carry out the plan, it changes, right? But the important thing was, can we trust them? Are we like-minded individuals? Can we work together? They have a saying that they take their work very seriously. They're in the highly regulated banking space, but they do not take themselves seriously, right? They don't have this high and mighty, aura about them. And it was like, hey, buddy, come on, let's join in together. You can be right beside me. You don't have to sit way in the back or be off in the corner. You can sit right beside me and let's go, to conquer this market together. And that was really exciting for us.
Well, there's so much more of that story we could dive into, but Mark, I know we got to get into some of the meat of the matter, so I'll toss the mic to you for the really first good question about the topic of the day.
I really want to do a short follow-up first, if I could, and that has been, I got a little pun here, and I don't mean it as a pun. It's going to sound like a pun. I've always felt that failures are the bedrock of our success, and that plays into the construction piece a little bit with you, but I want to kind of ask you, since you did other things before you finished your MBA and carried on and became part of SimpleNexus and the vision there, what from your failures did you learn that you brought into play in the creation and growth of the new company and carrying it right on into an acquisition mode?
Yeah. One of the first things that comes to mind is that when you're trying to build a business or do anything in life, right? You have opportunities to make decisions that may compromise your integrity. And if you stay true to who you are and always try to operate with integrity, it doesn't matter if it's going to be a success or a failure, you will always have who you are intact, right? And so when a business I was part of, and it was trying to lead, failed, at the end of the day, I myself didn't feel like a failure per se. I could analyze and see what went wrong and what I could have done better, but I knew that I always operated in a way that I could hold my head high. And I was proud of the effort I put in. And for whatever reason it failed, right? And owned those reasons, but never had to be ashamed of how I operated, right? And I think that's very important because sometimes when things get really hard, you're tempted to make decisions that are not the right decision from a moral standpoint or whatever, right? You want to cut corners or do something wrong or whatever. And it was important to be able to fail with grace, right? That gives you energy and confidence to go tackle the next challenge. So I think that was important. Other failures, other lessons you learn, is that, for one thing, that I have a value and a worth as an individual and a human being that not necessarily is tied to my professional success or failure, right? It messes with your head. It messes with your head when you fail and you're like, oh, I feel like an idiot or whatever. It's like, you know what? You're still a great father. You're still a great brother, child to somebody, you're a son to somebody, whatever, friend, type thing, husband, and those are the things that define your value. And that helped when I had failure. But also when we have a good amount of success, it helps keep me grounded to say, you know what, I'm still just regular old Ben,
I think that, and Mark, you certainly had your successes. I think our biggest challenge is not in the failures, but it's in the successes that we have. That's when things can mess with our heads in a really big way. And we start thinking ourselves more highly than we're not. So I had to jump in on that. That's a really good point.
Yep.
Well, I just hope I don't know how well it translates on a podcast, but I hope that the people on the podcast heard you the way I heard you, because I felt the spirit of what you were saying as much as I was hearing the word of what you're saying, and I think that's very important in all entrepreneurial situations. But I'm going to move on to the real topics here, so David will make sure I go through the list. We know this 2022 was an unprecedented year for a lot of ways. So we basically like to know, what do you feel are some of the year's biggest takeaway lessons for mortgage lenders and your interface with them with SimpleNexus, and how are you growing your company based on that?
Yeah. One of the first things that comes to mind is that sound old-fashioned business principles are still good, sound, old-fashioned business principles. Like, and it's kind of funny when the market's tearing off like a rocket, you're like, oh, you know what? I don't need to think about, taking some of this extra profit and putting it away for a rainy day. I need to reinvest it to take advantage of this opportunity or whatever. And then all of a sudden, it flips on you. And you're like, oh, wait a minute. Where's my rainy day fund? The time to build the rainy day fund is when you have extra, right? And we operated our business, we scaled in that environment, and we're still growing in this environment. We're one of the only mortgage tech companies that's growing, and that's a solid force out there. Some that, we're a company that people can depend on that has stability, because when times were really, really good, we did not go too far in excess, right? We didn't have to cut, way back like, some of the other companies are cutting and sacrificing their quality, when things have pulled back. So sound business principles, they're that for a reason, and that's a big takeaway. I think another takeaway is it's hard to scale with people alone. That's a very costly resource, not only from a dollars to go hire those heads, but also training and bringing somebody online. It takes time, right? And to the extent possible, you need to leverage software to get those efficiencies to help you scale, right? Because software can come online much more quickly and can adjust to the market dynamics, more quickly and more efficiently than trying to either gain a bunch of heads or then reduce a bunch of heads, right? And so I think that's a big takeaway. But yeah, just in 2022, you appreciated the realities of the cyclicality of this business.
And
I mean, it's real, it's cyclical. And for those, we have very, very good customers that have been in this business for decades, and they're operating at a high level right now. They're acquiring competitors right now, right? Because they knew 2020 and 2021 were uncharacteristic of a market. They weren't going to last forever, right? And they took steps necessary to prepare themselves for the pullback. And again, we did the same thing. You almost get pegged as a doomsdayer of saying, man, I can't wait for the pullback. It's coming. I know it's coming. I can't wait. Just because everybody else is not saying that. They're like, oh, let the good times roll. This is going to last forever. You're like, oh man, I can't wait. Because I'm going to eat their lunch when this thing pulls back. So
yeah. We don't wish ill on anyone, but some of these pullbacks are some of the healthiest things going on.
Yes.
Mark and I were on a call earlier, and we were talking about with David Kittle, and David Kittle's part of the TMC, and we're all part of. And he just pre-recorded a podcast with Doug Duncan talking about the days that are ahead, and he was very bullish about Doug Duncan, the chief economist for the MBA, celebrated chief economist, that is very bullish about the days ahead. But it seems like sometimes these seasons that we're going through right now, 2022, it's a cleansing year. And I think when we come, I hate to see anything terrible happens. It seems like it all happens more usually around the holidays. Terrible time for people to get laid off, businesses to close. But these are some of the cleansing times that really position those that come through the other side for success. So let's talk about 2023. There's no crystal ball. No one knows exactly where we're heading. We're all anticipating some good times ahead, as Doug predicts. And the next 10 years, he actually said, we're going to have some really amazing times of mortgage lending. But what are some of the ways lenders can best position themselves, Ben, for the success in the new year, especially from your perspective? I'm sure it involves technology. But
technology.
That's easy to answer.
So right now, it seems like we are still in a right-sizing mode of the industry, a healing mode, a wringing out of the extra capacity, right? Something that came to mind, our best year ever has been 2022, right? Before that, our best year ever was 2021. Before that, our best year ever was 2020. Before that, our best year ever was 2019. The point being, like in cyclicality, you can thrive in any environment, right? And we're coming into an environment that is going to look a lot like 2019. 2019 was a 2-point-something trillion year, right? And that's what they're projecting for next year, right? And so with the right amount of capacity in the system, there is money to be made as a mortgage lender in a $2 trillion year, right? I mean, it's not, woe is me, when is it ever going to get back to a $4 trillion year? You might as well get out of the business if that's what you're banking on, because it ain't happening, right? And but if you can build your business in a way that you're right sizing your capacity for the amount of volume that's there, and then in essence, you're trying to outlast the next guy, right? That needs to get out of the business, but hadn't gotten out yet, and how can you find advantages? How can you find those synergies within the company? Software being a major advantage. It makes me think about, the work we're doing with eClose, where you're taking a process from 16 days down to 8 days or fewer to ship a loan, right? And you're saving hard dollars on a warehouse line cost, or you're reducing cash outlay on what you'd spend on a FedEx shipping or a printing of paper, right? And it's hard change management to make that happen,
right?
But you will be more efficient. You will operate with fewer costs than the next guy, right? And you'll be able to outlast that other lender and thrive in this year. Those are some of the things that I think we need to be thinking about as we're coming into 23.
It reminds me of the story about the two hikers up in Alaska who were hiking in bear country, and one of the guys starts putting on his tennis shoes. He says, "Why are you putting on your tennis shoes?" He says, we're in bear country. I want to be able to run fast. He says, "You can't outrun a bear." He says, "No, I can't, but I just want to have to outrun you." And so I think that's an analogy with what you're really tying to.
Yes, 100%. 100%, right?
Yeah.
And it's again, we've heard some people say, "Oh, we need to lobby the government right now to lower mortgage rates so we can get the volumes back to where they were." Look, that we all know what happens when the government gets involved, right? It's
like, not a good thing. Not a good thing.
Run its course. Let's find the equilibrium. Let's operate in a healthy market. So, and let me help you outrun the next guy.
Yeah, and you do that with your technology. I'm really excited about that. Mark, back to you.
Ben, in my role in the past as a CEO and CEO of company, one of the hardest things for me to deal with, and I'm going to tell a little joke here that kind of spells it out for you. I'm a Vietnam veteran, and it's about Vietnam. So a guy's walking down the street, he's got his Vietnam veteran hat on, and he passes a guy that has a U.S. Army hat on. It could be a Marine hat. I like to make fun of Marine friends. And the guy's dragging his leg. So this guy walks by him and says he wants to be proud about being a Vietnam veteran. He said, Vietnam, 1972. And the guy dragging his leg says, dog poop, three blocks back. And usually somebody uses another word there, but what it's about in our industry is perception. And the biggest problem that I had as a manager, or going through years of massive change in technology, not as much as we have now, but big one-time changes back then, not all the integrations we have today, was convincing managers that they need to step out of the footprint they're in and try something new. And I learned that perception was everything. I had to not only have a reality of perception, but I had to understand what was building their perception coming from. So you selling to mortgage bankers something that can help them and help them succeed. What do you bump into about mortgage bankers' resistance to add something new to their technology mix? And how do you deal with that in the marketing of your company to these people?
Yes, that is a great question. Excellent question, because I think as a whole within our industry, and honestly, any industry, I think people are bad at purchasing software, right? We do not do a good job of buying software. And let me give you some examples. I think a lot of times we make a purchase decision. You heard the old saying that, nobody ever got fired for buying IBM mainframe, right? And so don't think about it. Don't analyze it. Just buy it. Just pay the man what he wants, right? How are you going to run a business like that? And so we might hear a new shiny thing over there. And it's like, I got to go buy that because that's the cool thing now, right? Or we take a software demo and there's a really slick presentation, buttoned up salesperson. You're like, oh, wow, they looked really cool. I'm going to buy their stuff, right? And we don't approach it by saying, first off, what in the world are we trying to solve? What problem are we trying to solve within our company? Let's clearly define that. And here's the pain points. Now let's go out and try to find something that addresses those pain points. And you may not know everything because there's honestly some things you don't know that you don't know. Right. So when you find, a vendor that is the world they live in, that is their expertise, you ought to be open to how we approach every customer as a partner, right? And so when we come into a sales situation, a discovery situation, it is to partner with that company and say, let's analyze the workflows. Let's see how you're doing business today, and then identify specific pain points. And then I can marry those up to different attributes, features and benefits of my software, and go earn your business. Go show, how this is going to work. Not just here's a slide or here's a fancy, quick presentation, but here's data, here's facts, here's social proof, here's other people who have implemented it and use it this way and have realized this gain, right? Because when we do that, that's a more logical approach. That's a higher value bet on realizing success, right? But not only that, it's important to have that conviction when you make the purchase to be able to see through the change management to realize that gain and that ROI. A lot of these things, e-close or a new front-end system, homeownership platform, whatever, it's hard to retrain the LOs, retrain the support staff on how to do something a different way, in a more efficient way. And there's going to be resistance. And if you purchased the software and started going down a path just because the thing looked pretty, that's going to wear off when stuff gets hard. You know what I mean? Like, what, it's kind of hard and I don't remember why I quite bought that thing. So let's just quit, But if you really partnered with that vendor and were able to see the hard evidence of proof of where the ROI can come from, that helps inspire you and give you the conviction you need and top-down leadership, right? To drive through the hard things, drive through and complete the change management to go realize those gains. And those are the types of companies that are winning right now, right? Those companies that are doing that, because the ones that aren't willing to have that in-depth analysis and the strength to power through and create change are the ones that are falling by the wayside. They're expecting to say, no, I'm just going to keep doing the things the way I've always been doing it. The world just shifted under your feet. Right. And it has changed. And if you're not changing with it, you're going to get left behind.
And one of the things, part of it is I have a bone to pick with you because you hired Brett Taylor, who one of my favorite friends. I finally got him to come over and help with me in the consulting, and you found out he's available, and he works on ROI. He's brilliant on how he starts doing an ROI analysis. You're half the cost of a major competitor that's out there in the marketplace. So it means you get the equal benefits at half the cost. And then he's starting to go even further into that analysis. So first of all, even though it frustrated me a little bit, Ben, kudos to hiring probably one of the brightest guys in this area. He is so articulate.
He is.
And it's really a credit to you to recognizing the importance of stressing and focusing on ROI and the return on investment right now, because a lot of people look at technology as a death by 1,000 cuts. How many times have we heard that? So to be able to reframe the discussion. So I'd love to get a little more color on that. We can
100%. No, and
a little bit here on this podcast.
And thank you for letting us have them. Right. No, it's love the approach. And it just goes back to that partnership aspect, right? Because we can come with data elements of, hey, we've seen success in our customer base through this and other ways, but every lender sometimes has their own flavor of doing things. And so you have to partner with that vendor and say, this is how we're doing it. Now, how does that apply to my world, right? And then we can build that model together. Don't take my word for it. Let's build it together. Right. And so that when you see the result, you're like, you know what, I was part of this creative process. Yeah. And so I believe it, I see it, and that's really important as well is having, the ROI study and the analysis with the different levers and knobs you can twist and adjust to make it yours, make it representative of your situation.
Yeah, I could tell all the listeners right now unequivocally, if you're looking at the cost, and you should be, and we all looking at cost, face it, we should be. If we're not, what's wrong with you? You'll be in the graveyard shortly. So everyone's looking at cost. And if you're going to look at cost from a technology standpoint, get Brett Taylor in there, help him walk through that ROI analysis for you. He's fair and objective, as one of the networks says. He really is fair and objective at pointing out where the costs are. And he's just a brilliant guy you'll get to know. I want to look at a little bit more about the SimpleNexus trajectory, what we can expect over the what we've seen over the last year, probably good to do a little bit of a year in review. And then also, what can we expect in 2023?
Yeah, no, I love that question. Matt and I sometimes don't sit back and celebrate the wins enough. We're just kind of in the battle in the heat of the moment and continue to power through, right? But I'm very, very proud of how the company has performed this past year. It's an amazing milestone to have a transaction of that size, with an amazing company like nCino, and then also a transaction that is not representative of the end of the rainbow, but is another launching point and trajectory to continue powering forward, right? That preserves our ability to continue being the best in class and the homeownership platform and the best in class of mortgage, right? Front end technology. And to bring that to more lenders out there. And that's what we're really excited about. In 2022 also, we grew the company tremendously, from a revenue standpoint. Every quarter we had, net positive, revenue for mortgage related revenue, right? I mean, and that was hard to find, in the industry. So very, very proud of the ROI, right? You do that because you have great product, great product that delivers an ROI, and you have great people, right? We have the best people in the industry that have, operated with integrity, that work with, those that truly partner with them. And so we get that repeat business, we get that referral, word of mouth business, and that's allowed us to grow. And there's a very, very challenging environment. So, where does that, take us from here? We expect, more of the same in 2023. We have aspirations and plans to continue to add logos, to continue to gobble up market share from our competitors. We see many of our competitors slipping up now. And, a lot of those companies are coming to us, and it's primarily because they're looking for a stable partner that delivers on what they say they're going to do, right? And they want someone they can count on. You got enough problems going on in the mortgage industry right now. Who can I sign up with? Who can I partner with where I can set it and forget it? Like the crockpot dinner. Like, okay, I'm partnering with SimpleNexus. It's going to be taken care of, right? And that part of my business, I'm not going to have to worry about. And that's what people are looking for. That's what they can count on with us, and that's what they're getting. And that's going to continue to drive our growth this next year.
Well, you've had a lot of great people already with your company. You attracted them in, and you got and you went out and bought one of my favorite companies, Lori Bird.
And Lori, yeah. She was on your podcast the other day.
Yeah, she was on that podcast here recently and talking about the vision. And what's also, you recognize her brilliance at product forward thinking and looking at products. She's working on the product development, working real closely with you, Ben, on that. And the vision that she kind of outlined is really good. And she gave me a little bit of a sneak peek of some of the things that you're working on that we can't yet talk about. But man, there is some real innovation taking place. How do you foster an innovation, Ben, in a market where there seems to be so much fear, a fear of failure?
Yeah. Yeah. You have to. So it kind of goes back to, it reminds me a little bit of when we were talking about when I failed as a company and could decouple my personal identity and worth with my professional identity, right? To say, regardless, I know who I am, right? And I know my value. That concept is a similar concept right now, right? In a market and an environment that's crumbling all around you. And there's all these reasons to fear and be scared and go hide under a rock. If you know what you have, right? And if you know the rock that you're built on, you can operate with conviction and clarity in a market full of chaos, right? And those are the winners in this environment, right? The people that are stressed, all day and they can't go to bed at night, they make poor decisions, and they're distracted in their mind. Well, you have clarity on where you're going to go and the value that you bring to the market, that can help you operate with conviction. And so we have that base and that foundation of knowing that we bring value to the industry, right? We know our platform delivers results, and that opens us up to be more creative and to partner with, our customer base and partner with the industry and say, this is where we are today. Let's create together. How do we solve more problems? And, the customer is the one running the bank, right? The mortgage bank. I'm trying to build software. I don't know all the ins and outs of running a mortgage bank like the operator does. And so they're the perfect source for helping me understand what needs to be built next. What is the next problem I'm trying to solve, right? And kind of like e-close, right? They're like, hey, I need to save money. I need to be more efficient. I need to be able to ship these things faster than my competitors so I can, reduce my cost and be more competitive and put that back into my pricing, right? Offer better rates and better pricing to be able to get, more loan volume through and whatnot. And they help steer us in the direction. Then we go and do the innovating and create the workflows and the technology to make all that come to pass. And then we can go into a market like this, knowing that even though it's ugly, we know we can bring value right now today to somebody. And that can help stabilize their world, right? And it helps us operate, hold our head high and go serve the industry. And I think that's really important about, where innovation comes from, and how to operate in the midst of chaos.
And I think it's also important to know your swim lane, to know where to stay and who to partner with. And I think a good example of that is one of our other sponsors you partner with is Candor. Tom Showalter and I have become good friends, and he was really talking about how they really enjoy the partnership because of the like-mindedness, the creativity on that. So I think it's not just acquiring companies like you did with Lori Brewer and LBA but it's then saying, I don't need to necessarily go acquire the whole world. It's partnering with the right world. Yes, acquiring the right ones, but partnering with companies like Candor, which is clearly a market leader in their space. So kudos to you and the vision, the strategy you have, Ben, and you and Matt are doing, and the whole team. It's amazing.
And just talking to that point real quick, with Lori's technology, we're pairing that with our offering to broaden the platform experience, right? Yeah. And so SimpleNexus by itself now partnered with compensation, visibility and not calculating the commission, but now making it more visible, especially now layering on Nexus Vision. You have a more complete platform experience that gives you visibility and data and information that you can act on and make decisions more quickly and efficiently within your organization, right? Same thing with Candor, right? They have an amazing loan engineering system, I think they call it, right? It helps reduce those underwriting costs, but bring all that forward and more closely into the front end. And we can pair with them and bring that data right into Candor so they don't have to wait for it to, hit an LOS or sit on a desk for a little bit before they get it. We can make that more efficient and bring it forward into the experience and have a direct feed, to that borrower, and it's going to revolutionize how homes are purchased, how loans are originated, in this space. I'm very, very excited. We're just kicking off an effort, with them to bring the technologies together in a partnership, and I'm very excited what that's going to bring this new year.
Well, I think I remember my parents said to me a long, long time ago when I was young kids, they said, son, you're going to be known by the company you keep. And I think when you look at the company you are keeping and who you're surrounding yourself with is such a big part of your success, Ben. What an honor to be to spend the time here with you today. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the opportunity, Mark. And look, it's a pleasure and honor of mine because, we're here to serve the industry. And excited to be able to talk about who we are and what we're doing. We're very passionate about what we're accomplishing, what we've already accomplished, and where we're headed. And thank you for affording us this opportunity.
Well, thank you for being a sponsor, but thank you more importantly for making a significant difference in the industry with your vision. Greet Matt and the whole company. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And take care.
You've been listening to Lykken on Lending, a weekly mortgage market update with your host, David Lykken of Transformational Mortgage Solutions. Join us next week, and thanks for listening.